Yay! We're here for a very special episode today. We're going to dive into mom hot takes. And I think this is going to be a pretty fun conversation. And Cindy and I are going to talk about if we agree or disagree on different topics that tend to be a little controversial. Of course, these are our own opinions. We want to lead off with that. So, Cindy, are you excited for this conversation?
A bit nervous actually because
Figured you were.
I know, well, anytime I'm giving my opinion on something, I'm like, oh, people are going to lash out. They're going to be like, why do you think that? But let's embrace it. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I don't think we're talking about anything too controversial. We'll leave that for your family Sunday dinner. This is just
Right.
today we're talking parenting and discipline. So the first hot take that we're going to dive into is timeouts. A timeout.
Mm.
I grew up with timeouts. Did you grow up with timeouts?
I did not have timeouts, but I am a bit older than you. And we had more of the threatening of spanking or
Mm,
stand in the corner, things of that nature. I think timeouts came a little bit later. And in my personal opinion, I feel that they can be effective if they're
mm.
used in an appropriate way. Personally, and from what I've heard from experts that we've had on the show before and that we talked to quite a bit, timeouts are a great way for you to remove them from the situation and have them redirected and give them a chance to basically refuel and be taken away from the situation that's actually triggering them.
Yeah. So the question is essential or outdated, and I would largely agree with you, but I think a lot of what you're saying hints at it's a reframing. Like in my generation, a timeout or being grounded when you were older was this punishment. Like you go away, you sit in a corner with your back to the wall. Go way back in the day, you wore a dunce hat.
Oh, horrible,
um,
horrible.
and that felt very punishing. It felt very attention drawn to you. Whereas I think from what I remember hearing from experts as well is this idea that we need to remove you from the situation and give you a moment to calm down, and
Mhm.
you're not a bad kid. There's just this behavior that we're seeing that we need to stop in the moment, and let's give you a moment to calm down. And I know a lot of people have calm down corners and calm down boxes, and I think that can be utilized in those situations, which changes the feel of the quote unquote timeout. And I think it's also important to note the child. I think every kid is different. And while our philosophies on parenting and punishment and discipline have changed, I still fully believe that every parent knows their own child best and what works or doesn't work. And I know there are parents that have tried everything under the sun. And I just want to pause and acknowledge that every parent knows what's best. You know your child best and have probably tried all the things. So definitely
Right,
no judgment if it works
right.
in whatever capacity you use it, basically.
Yeah. I want to backtrack and say I 100% agree with you saying it's a reframing of timeouts, because now that I'm thinking about it, I did have timeouts growing up where I was sent to my bedroom, but it wasn't called a timeout. And it was where I was given that time, but I was uh, taken away from the situation. And what experts basically say is when you're pushed to go have time in your bedroom, like I did, you're basically giving them a message that their feelings are too big. You can't handle their feelings. What they're feeling is wrong, etc. And I can see that. And so then the reframing has come into making it into a timeout. So rather than go to your room, it's time for a timeout. And for our kids, you're right. We did try, it's time to sit on this bench. It's time to go over here and talk to them about their feelings. But we also had a safe space. And it was what you were kind of talking about, where it was like this corner. So essentially, if I was sent to my corner when I was growing up, which happened very minimally because I was a pretty good kid, but
Of course you are.
but it was a timeout essentially, but just phrased in a different way.
Yeah.
So our safe space was one of those IKEA toddler beds, and we made cushions and pillows, and we made like a contraption around it with curtains. And so it was a place for them to go and recenter themselves and maybe have a toy that helps them balance themselves, or, just we sit and we talk to them about their feelings and whatnot. So that was beneficial for us.
Yeah. And also, I guess I'll throw out, I did mention grounding as you get older. And I think you're probably more in this space even than I am. What discipline looks like with older kids can be really tricky. I think a lot of it now is probably things like taking away technology and things like that. But grounding was used quite a bit. I wasn't grounded very often, but there was a couple times. And I think that is another version in a way for our older kids. And I don't know yet. I have no idea when my child gets older where I'll fall on that. I mean, I think sometimes it's needed. If I look back at me as a kid, it was needed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're in it right now. We're really in it. And you're right. Every time you kept saying grounding, I immediately went to, putting their feet in the grass, like grounding. Grounding in that way. Not like you're grounded for a week.
Honestly is what they need even more than like being sent to their room.
Seriously.
They probably do need to go put their feet in the grass. And
yes, they really do. They need to take some deep breaths. We try that. We try the breathing, but more with our preteen and teenager, we really try to let them have a voice and talk to us about things. Because when I was growing up, it was more of what your parents say goes. And now we're not like militant parents. We're more of like a democracy where we allow our kids to tell us how they're feeling. Okay. Help me understand what is going on in this moment. What made you stay on your phone for an hour longer than you were supposed to, or whatever it's supposed to be. And sometimes it's ridiculous. Should I say what their excuses are? But I think it's important that they have a voice. Let's move on to participation trophies. Do you think they're good for confidence or setting kids up for failure?
Oh, good question. I have a mixture of feelings on this. I understand the science and the logic behind kids should not get a participation trophy, that participating is their reward, and that we want our kids to have the confidence to go into a game or an activity or a sport or whatever it might be, and to participate and know that maybe they don't win, but that's okay. And the point is to have fun, and there's lessons. And when we give them this trophy, is that sort of detracting from the people that did have the skill and the talent to win, or taking away even from them when they do win in something? So I do see that, and I probably lean slightly more towards that side. Simultaneously, as someone that often can see both sides of everything, I also can see the idea behind the premise behind it when it was first created, right? Like, let's build our kids' confidence. Everybody came and they tried their best, so let's recognize them for that. Do I think that getting a little gold trophy or a little ribbon for every single activity is necessary? No, nor do I want all that junk in my house.
Oh, yes. I'm with you. Yeah, you made a lot of great points. And I'm also one of those people that can see both sides. And I do see the benefit, the pros and cons to both of them. I do, however, try to think long term, and how is this setting our kids up to be able to deal with failure as an adult? Yes, you need to be focused on child development and understand that they are children with children's brains, but we do have to prepare them a bit for what's going to happen in the future. And realistically, in a job, when you're working, you do not get certificates for everything that you do, right? But I do understand that they are more fragile. Their egos are more fragile. You're trying to teach them good sportsmanship. You're trying to teach them teamwork and cheering on the rest of their teammates. You don't want it to become too competitive.
Do you really think that they're more fragile, or this is what I envision someone on the other side saying?
Yeah.
Do you really think that they're more fragile, or have we created a situation in which they are? Have we
Mm,
coddled them to a point
yes.
where they're so fragile? Because I think there are lots of instances, if we look over through time, where they haven't been. They can take a failure, and yes,
Mhm.
it hurts, but there's valuable lessons in that. And I think more than the trophy saying you participated, but hey, you still lost, is after that event when they lost, they come to you and they can cry it out, they can express their frustration, and you can co-regulate with them, you can hold space with them, you can acknowledge the pain, you can share your own stories where you
Mhm.
failed and felt that same pain. And that's a growing opportunity, and that, I think, is what strengthens that ego and strengthens that sense of inner confidence, is navigating through that and getting to the other side.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree with that for sure. And fragile is probably not the right word. I think what I was trying to convey is that they're still a work in progress. Well, we all are.
Sure.
Good
Yeah.
gracious. I can't think of the right word to use. They're basically still building their brains. Yes, 100% exactly what you said. So, what is our overall consensus on this? I I don't think that participation trophies are fully necessary. I feel like we have to interact with the child and talk to the child and make sure that they are processing their feelings and understanding it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another hot take, similar topic. Should kids be allowed to quit activities they don't like?
Okay. So, again, like with all of these, every situation is different. So, if, for example, your child is participating in some sort of activity and it's unhealthy for them, there's bullying, people are treating them very poorly, they're injured, things like that. You have to take that
Of
with each
course. Yeah.
situation. However, if my kid is healthy and it's just that they either don't like investing the time in this particular activity, or they are, wanting to invest more time in gaming versus like playing pickleball or whatever they're doing. You take it situation by situation. So if my child came to me and said, I'm not having fun, I don't really want to do this anymore, I would encourage my child to finish out their commitment and say, we made a commitment. Let's keep trying this and seeing how it goes. It's a learning experience, and just really trying to help them make it through as best as they can. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't really have too much different to offer. I feel the same. I think that you make completely great points. Again, I'll revert to the idea that we each know our own kid best. We have our own relationship with them. We know if there's a certain line that's being crossed. I think finishing your commitment, if you've signed up for a year of dance, you finish your year of dance and then you can reassess. But finishing that commitment is important. I will also say that I don't have a lot of personal experience in this, because with my daughter, and I only have one, she wants to do all the activities and she never wants to quit anything and she wants to keep adding more. So I have to force her. I'm like, no, we got to quit something. So it's kind of a different end of the spectrum. But if I think back to when I was a kid, in hindsight, looking back as an adult, there's things that my mom let me quit all the time. I just said, "Oh, I'm not really liking it." And she's a single mom. She didn't want to cart me around everywhere.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
totally get that. I, in hindsight, am like, if I had stuck with it, I would have been good at that. I wish that
Mm,
I had stayed in lacrosse. I wish that I had stayed in dance. I'm graceful. I'm strong. I've got good eye-hand coordination. I would have been good at those things, but I wasn't good for those first 6 weeks I tried it. And I came home crying because I couldn't do the pirouette or catch the ball with the net. And so there's a fine line there, right? But at the time, I was so thankful to my mom. So there's that weird, again, going back to as a parent, in the moment, you want to do what's best for your kid, but also thinking about that sort of long-term picture there.
yeah. Yeah. You want them to know that you're hearing them, that you're listening to them, that you're taking into consideration their feelings about it. But you also want them to understand that if you're not good at the first 3 times you try it, it takes practice and hard work in order to get good.
And that's how we learn consistency and persistency and tenacity, keeping with it. Those are incredibly valuable as adults in the working world and just in general. And we have to learn that somewhere. So I do think that's a valuable place to learn that from.
Absolutely.
This was very fun. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and opinions with me, Cindi. I love talking to you, as
I love
always.
talking to you too. And I hope the listeners out there were able to gather something. We'd love to hear feedback